What is something you want to brag about, but never get the chance because it never comes up in conversation? For a while, I was #1 in Cut the Rope on Android worldwide. Then the leaderboards got flooded with hacked scores. I bowled a perfect 300 a few years ago. Actually threw over 24 strikes in a row in a 3-game series, but only the middle game was perfect. That was 7 years ago now, and I haven't bowled since. Going out on a high note. One time I stopped the microwave at 0 seconds. I have completely finished 4 separate tubes of chapstick. I can say the alphabet backwards and forwards with similar ease. I can also pick up from any point, backwards and forwards, and continue on without having to think or recite parts of it to find my place. I once saw a guy lying on a road trying to die. I went in front of him waving at cars not to hit him. Then I convinced him to go out of the street and talk. Stayed with him a couple of hours. I don't talk about this incident ever, nothing to brag about. We all have our ups and downs. Sometimes all we need is someone to talk. Guy is still alive 10 years later. I was friends with a younger Hispanic guy, who was trying to get into a college for the arts and his dad refused to help him. He needed scholarships and one of the ones he wanted was a national essay contest on the importance of Hispanic culture in the United States. He paid me $50 to write it for him and it won. The article I wrote was published in a magazine that had a famous actor on the cover. I'm white and I wrote it while I was drunk, although that does tend to get the creative juices flowing. And yes, he did go to college where he wanted. I know it's a bit unethical, but that aside, I've never won anything like that for myself, so I'm still kind of proud of it. I work with special needs students on the daily, and I get many compliments by parents, saying how much I've helped their child. The best feeling I've ever had. I really want to brag about how humble I am, but just can't. Falling asleep on the toilet when I was 6. I'm a pretty quiet introverted guy. I was just a giant nerd growing up with few/no friends, so I never really thought of myself as socially skilled. But I fairly recently started dating casually for fun, and almost all the women I've been out with have at some point mentioned how charming I am. Really surprised me, honestly. I've also been a lot more successful at the whole thing than expected. I used to work on cruise ships in my mid-20s. I've been to almost every continent, minus Antarctica. When a place I've been to comes up in conversation and I say I've been there, I've been told it sounds like I'm a pretentious asshole. So I try not to say anything anymore. But I got paid really well to sing and to travel in some of the best years of my life. I beat Spider-Man PS4 on Ultimate Mode and went from 30% to 75% in maths class. My grandma. They finally took her driver's license off her at age 94, thank fuck for that. She was a complete speed racer who put the fear of God into anyone traveling with her. When one of her friends who bicycles everywhere, was pushed over and robbed by a gang of youth, Grandma also got herself a bike. She then got a basket for her bike, and a crowbar. She then proceeded to cycle about town in the hope she would be mugged, so she could beat them up with her crowbar. She was never challenged, thank goodness. Who knows how that would have ended? GBH and prison for Grandma probably. I've killed the Ender Dragon legit before. I am really good at tetherball. I never get to play anymore as I am an adult and have not seen one set up since elementary school. So I guess I mean, I was really good. I used to be at the world top of what was then called Roboblast Planet. It now has a different name, but it's connected to Movie Esther Planet. I had the highest level and got most of my XP out of building prefabs people could use in their worlds. Those were the times, around first half of 2016 BTW if anyone was wondering. I was both prom king and valedictorian in high school, but mentioning either makes me egotistical in two different ways. Imagine mentioning both. Also, I've grown past high school like everyone else, so mentioning any form of high school achievement is pretty lame. Back when WWE was WWF, my uncle's dog used to stand in for the British Bulldogs when he came to UK events, as the usual dog would have had to be quarantined. My chicken lets me pet him. I went from being one of the retarded kids in class who would never accomplish anything and would be lucky if he passed a single GCSE to getting a first-class STEM degree. It's not much to most people, but I am really proud of myself. I've gotten up to 45 miles per hour on my moped. I found wild parsnip growing in a public walkway, reported it to the city, and then they called me back to let me know I was right and it will be removed. Fairly pleased about that. I know no one that cares about invasives. I grew up in a home where I never went hungry to bed, nor was cold on the outside, but was cold on the inside due to lack of emotional presence of my parents. My family never had many friends, so I never had many either. I'm 25, and now finally, after university etc., had the time to address myself. The few friends I had are living in the same hell, yet they don't want to get out. I discarded them. Not great, but sacrificing them is the lesser of the evil of throwing away my life. It's only been about 6 months of active work, daily battles, to get rid of social anxiety, working on being a man, learning to live. I found a wonderful, female, friend the same time ago who I now semi-jokingly refer to as my sister, who was the first person to ever really give a shit about me. It's a real struggle, but I can actually hold a decent conversation now, and can go everywhere without fear. I'm currently trying to learn how to flirt, and mustering up the courage to ask women out at the bar. I'm kinda proud of myself. And a big thank you to everyone who creates content about social topics on YouTube. I think my dad was pretty close to an ideal parent. I was always close to my dad and knew everyone liked him, but lots of people think their dads are the best, right? However, my psychotherapist, mom was not so perfect, and you know, shit happens in life, said after years that he was just about the best and most competent parent she had ever heard about in her practice. Often, when I was having trouble, she would just say, "What would your father say about this situation?" So, I really do feel like I won the lottery on that one. She was an amazing therapist and helped me not just come out of deep, destructive depression, but she helped me transform into a confident person who could follow truly all of my dreams. I would go back and see her every year or two continually until she finally retired. Edit, some examples of why my dad was such a great parent. Abstractly, he did such a good job because he was able to love and support me entirely as a separate person from him, with almost no narcissistic investment. All my successes were mine, and he never worried about being embarrassed about anything I did. He was very loving, very wise, highly intelligent, and very practical. He just wanted me to be happy. An example from relatively late in my life, because it's fresher in my mind. I was taking a really hard course in college and I was feeling really defeated by it. I called my dad and he said something like, "This material is just hard, there is no way around it. But I took this course, and so did plenty of other people, and we passed and we survived, and so will you. Everyone thinks this material is hard, the ones who say they don't are lying." He taught me that when kids pick on other kids, it's because they learned from their older sibling or maybe even their own parents. When someone picks on you, you look for other people to pick on. It doesn't really have anything to do with the person they are picking on per se. He taught me not to take myself too seriously, and not to give in to the emotional games middle school girls play. That it's better to be by yourself than have toxic friends, but by having that attitude alone you will not be lonely because that allows you to make good friends. I had many crazy ambitions growing up, from baseball player, to farmer, to Navy pilot, to fine art photographer, and supported every single one. We went to hundreds of baseball games, and he helped me devise my own special form so I could keep score in extra detail. We went to air and space museums, so I could see the planes. We read Jefferson together to discuss the purity of the American farmer. He bought me photography gear and paid for me to take special classes. He did all this knowing I would never pursue any of these passions when it all came to my adult vocation, despite my early ambitions to do otherwise. He knew all along what I would do with my life, become a scientist, but he never pushed it, not once. When I asked him why, if he always knew, he said, "This is a decision you need to make for yourself, and I knew you would when you were ready." I could go on and on. Really, though, the best thing he ever did was just purely love me without wanting anything out of it himself. From the day I was born. He got up every night when I cried, he stayed home with me when I was sick, he took me to work with him when I was off from school just because he loved spending time with me. He just had a great understanding of people in general, but kids particularly. He understood that childhood is hard and that most people only think differently because of the gauze of nostalgia. He understood that kids should be listened to and their observations taken seriously, as they are often more interesting than those of adults because they offer a fresh outlook, untainted by expectation. He never ever got mad at me or lost patience with me for just being a kid. He never let it get to him. If I drew on the wall, he would just live with crayon on the wall for a while. It won't kill anyone. If I spilled food on the floor, he would just clean it up. He knew not correct kids in front of other people. Kids can feel embarrassed, too. Don't get me wrong, I could be a pest, but all he would do was tease me about it until I relented, and it didn't take long before we were both laughing like crazy.